5,000 years ago, along the banks of the Indus River, a highly advanced society thrived. Today, it remains one of human history's largest, yet most forgotten civilizations. This map shows how the Indus Valley Civilization easily eclipsed its more famous contemporaries. While ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia occupied relatively concentrated river valleys, the Indus footprint sprawled across an astonishing 1.2 million square kilometers. Yet modern history completely lost track of its existence until the year 1856, when British colonial officials were laying down a railway track to connect the cities of Lahore and Karachi. Digging through the dry dirt, laborers struck an endless supply of uniform, fire-baked clay bricks. Assuming they had simply stumbled upon an old ruin, the workers gathered hundreds of thousands of them to use as track ballast, completely unaware they were crushing 5,000-year-old artifacts. It wasn't until the 1920s that formal archaeological surveys began to dig deeper, realizing these bricks belonged to something much larger than a single ruin. Out of the mud emerged sprawling, complex urban centers. The two largest and most famous were named Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro. The literal building blocks of a 19th-century industrial railway had accidentally resurrected what was then the most expansive urban society on Earth. The most striking feature of these newly unearthed ancient cities was an extreme devotion to strict central planning. The lower residential towns were laid out on a strict grid. Streets intersected at perfect right angles, dividing the city into neat, standardized rectangular blocks long before the Greeks or Romans attempted similar designs. Beneath those streets sat an incredibly advanced sanitation network. Nearly every home featured a private bathroom, connected to covered drains that safely flushed wastewater out of the city limits. This focus on cleanliness scaled up to massive public works. At Mohenjo-Daro, a watertight brick structure known as the Great Bath points to a culture that practiced large-scale communal purification. And this engineering prowess adapted to harsher climates, too. Further south, the city of Dolavira sits right on the Tropic of Cancer, an environment with highly unpredictable rainfall. To survive there, Dolavira's builders carved deep cascading stone reservoirs to capture and store whatever precious water the summer monsoons provided. While Egyptian pharaohs and Mesopotamian kings exhausted their resources building towering tombs and ziggurats for themselves, the builders of the Indus Valley directed their engineering genius almost entirely toward public health and civic order. That focus on order reveals another anomaly in the archaeological record. Despite their vast wealth and massive population, we find almost no evidence of large-scale weaponry, local defenses, or warfare. Instead of fighting, they traded. Competitive energies flowed outward into international commerce, with flat-bottom boats navigating the river networks and venturing into the Arabian Sea. Caravan leaders, known in later texts as Sarthavahas, organized massive overland and maritime trade routes. They used highly standardized weights and measures to export jewelry, textiles, and metals far west into Mesopotamia. To manage this vast logistics network, these merchants relied on thousands of carved steatite seals. They would press these small, intricate stones into clay to mark ownership on bundles of trade goods. Stamped alongside animal motifs, like this unicorn bull, are distinct characters of the Indus script. By analyzing symbol spacing and stroke direction, linguists know it reads right to left. Yet a century after discovery, the language remains completely undeciphered. This leaves us with a historical irony. We can map the exact layout of their street gutters and household toilets, but we cannot comprehend a single word they wrote. Around 1900 BCE, this golden age abruptly deteriorated. Urban planning halted, the standardized weights fell out of use, and the great cities slowly emptied. For decades, historians blamed a hypothetical invasion by Aryan nomads. But recent archaeogenetics, specifically DNA extracted from the site of Rocky Gari, shows no evidence of a violent, large-scale slaughter or sudden population replacement. The real culprit was the climate. This timeline graph illustrates the 4.2 kiloyear event. Exactly 4,200 years ago, precipitation plummeted, causing critical summer monsoons to fail. Without those monsoons, glacier-fed rivers weakened, and the Saraswati River dried up completely, devastating the agricultural heartland. A lush, fertile breadbasket slowly transformed into an arid, unsustainable desert. The environment could simply no longer support dense urban populations, so the people migrated. They abandoned the megacities of the West and dispersed eastward toward the Ganges Valley, establishing smaller, rural farming communities. The Indus Valley Civilization was ultimately defeated by climate change, yet its people walked away, leaving behind the remnants of a highly ordered urban world and a genetic legacy that still forms the foundation of South Asia today.